5 basic steps or categories to take your machine from what might be trash. Here's one, fellas, trying to a trash to cash. This is an old machine to cash. Coming up. I'll see you guys in a minute. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping in the garage today. And so this one is 5 basic steps. We'll call them categories, really, for taking your machine, whether it's something you found on the road. Common times of the year, guys. You may know, beginning of the year and towards the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, it doesn't start. They're sick of it. They put it to the curb. They go get something else. End of the year, they think they're sick of it. They're done with it. They do the last little bit of cleanup. It goes to the curb. I've found a lot of machines like that. Or you go to a swap meet or a car show, or you go to the local whatever bazaar, flea market where they sell fleas, and you pick something up online, maybe FB, Facebook, or something like that, or you have something yourself that you've let go for a long period of time. Now, I've developed basically 5 essential categories, and that's what helps me to get through all of these machines by doing, not really assembly line fashion, but by covering these points. They all need some kind of a tune-up. When they come to me, they need some kind of a tune-up. And I tell customers that bring me stuff, I'm like, well, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do, or I'm not going to do it. Because if it's not running, it's not a tune-up, right? It's a tune-up if it's running. If it's not running, it's broken. That's a repair. So repair and tune-up go together, and they live 2 feet above the ground in the muck and the filth and the dirt and all over the place, and they need help. And after quite a number of years, really, it's the same steps for all of them, and otherwise I don't do it. Now, this is a nice older machine. It's got, real bearings in the back. It's got nice beefy tires. It's got your 6.75, electronic ignition Briggs engine. It's got a big bag. This is like a really big bag for this series. It's got an adjustable cable on it for adjusting the front transmission. It just has, it was built really well, really strong. It's very heavy gauge steel. So let's get started on this. We're going to walk through what I do, and I'm going to show you guys, and we're going to talk a little about it as we do it. I'll see you in a minute. Now, step 1, guys, of course, to get started is obviously procuring the machine, however that is, right? And you have to kind of do a bit of a diagnosis. But I'm going to call step 1 cleaning. And any opportunity I get, right, to show off my favorite product for cleaning is Super Clean. Whether you use a hose or you're going to be using something else, I have this nice Mr. Leanne's whatever electric pressure washer. Check out that video as well on me unboxing it and testing it for the first time. And of course, I use it in a lot of videos. We're not going to be using it in this one, but I do want to reference for $150 or $200 or sometimes around $100, you can get one of their nice pressure washers, and mixed with something like this or the hose, you can have a very economic way of cleaning quite a number of things around the house. And you can do that with Super Clean. You can do that with something as simple as a decent electric pressure washer. And if need be, right, you can start off with a hose. So I already cleaned it. I'm not really, going to be showing any of that here, but that is step 1. And it's part of also really the next step, which is really diagnostics. When you're cleaning it, you take all the tops off, and you're going to have junk in your fuel tank. You're going to have, carburetor issues most likely. You got to get all that out. You want to get the pull starter off. Remember, it's air cooled and it's oil cooled, right? The oil is for lubrication, but that oil splashing over the engine and the fins and everything is what helps to transfer the heat out of the engine, get it into the environment, and to keep it lasting longer, keep the oil just a little cleaner, a little bit better, a little bit longer. So cleaning this isn't just about making it pretty, it's also about functionality. And if you've had a machine, like this machine's old. I don't know what the date is, I didn't bother checking it, but I know, approximately like 20 years old or something. They will last a really long time, guys, if you take care of it. Also, another thing I do, which we'll be showing you a little bit later in this episode, I take the wheels off, and particularly in the front, this is front drive, I take the cover off, and I get in there. You want to be careful with a pressure washer around the belt, because you could damage the belt. If you keep it away from the belt, or you're using a lower pressure machine, I find that these machines around 1000 psi will do the job, and if you hit the belt, it might fray it a little bit, it won't damage it. My bigger machine at over 2,000 psi, even when I turn it down, it'll rip it apart. You want to get the wheels clean, you want to get the gears cleaned out, and one of the things, of course, I do is that when I'm done, I usually do several machines at a time, and when I'm done, I lubricate with just, sometimes I just use used old motor oil that I pull out. I don't save the garbage motor oil, but whether it's my van or whatever, which gets very little miles on it, whatever, I try to save all that stuff aside, and I kind of hose it down with oil. I get everything sort of just oiled up, and I put the tires back on, and I may leave it to the side for a few weeks, so I don't want water sitting in there without some lubrication. I'm going to be going back over it anyway, but if I were to leave water on it, you guys know it can cause problems, make things worse. So that's my first lubrication, and I just kind of get that all out of the way, get the wildlife out of the machine, the super huge spiders and the critters, and then I can see if there's any damage from critters in it. I can get my face in any of these machines, and I can start developing what I see and what I know. I may find a flywheel leak up at the top, which may tell me right off the bat that this motor's probably trash. Whatever it is, guys, it's diagnostics, and it's part of the cleanup. So let's get on to the next phase. Now, the most common thing I find on any one of these machines, and I noticed this particularly in my cleanup early diagnostic phase, is I test the cables. And I knew that the drive cable was not working, so I suspected I needed a drive cable. And that helps me to evaluate with all the machines I have out there. It helps me to evaluate whether or not this is going to be, it's one of the things that helps to determine whether or not it might be a parts machine. And I also checked the engine bell, and I knew that was stuck too. So you'll see in this segment here coming up where I actually go through these and I start poking at them and lubricating them to see if they're going to work, and if I can actually get them going again, or do I have to replace them. I figure that all into the cost, but this is a cable where it's on the right hand side, so it's a longer cable. And I start making determinations as to whether or not I'm going to replace the cable, or maybe I just want to reline it, right, with a fresh aircraft grade stainless steel insert. I started doing that this year. Anything I can do to save money, and also these are longer cables. They're a little harder to get. I use a lot of used inventory, and so I considered that. And I just get a different cable for my used inventory, depending upon how many I have. So let's get to that. I'm gonna just get started. I took the top off and just kind of get that out of my way. The gas tank is puking some kind of brown diarrhea, just like my dog did in the house a little while ago. So I got to deal with that, and then I want to take this cable off. It's kind of stuck. So worst case is that this outer sheath looks really good, but something's stuck in here, and sometimes they free up. So I'm going to take this off and see if I can free it up, and if not, we may first replace the cable in here, and then get the engine bail, zone control. That's what they call it. I call it like engine control. Now there's a bolt out. This is a head bolt, and I found it just sticking out a little bit. So we're going to want to check the torque on, or not necessarily the torque. We'll just kind of tighten down the head bolts. We'll do a compression test. Got to pull this gas tank off with the puke, and the carburetor. We'll take a peek inside, and then we'll go from there. Now, I already cleaned it, but it's been kind of cleaned a few times. It just got dirty again from something. The oil does not look bad. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it's not black on my finger. And I'm feeling kind of pale today. I have to clean up the doggy stuff inside the house. So I think that's a good sign. All right, I'll see you guys in a minute. All right, it's working out pretty good. I just locked it in the vise. Took a little crocus cloth, a little sandpaper, because there's just a little bit of rust. It's kind of like a rust. This is a steel cable. Check it. Watch your fingers. If any of this splinters, throw it out. But this one's in good shape. I'm going to see if I can take this end off, right? And then I'm going to put my little cable loober in. It twists off. And see the junk in there? Now, sometimes we can blow that out. But I'm going to put some lube in that, and usually that does it, because it's mostly here on the end, since we removed most of it already. So I might be able to get my cable loober in that and just solve the rest of it and get some oil up in there and some lube. Grease, usually white grease, works pretty good too, but you got to get it in a little bit deeper. And I work the other end the same way. A little bit of, You know, let's see, I put a little bit of my oil and my tranny fluid mix and kind of work it down in the end of the cable, and then I'll finish up with a bit of grease too. But as long as there's no splinters and we get it mostly cleaned out and it feels good, it's fine. All right, so I got my cable looper on there, and then when you put the cable looper on, just pull it all the way down and then lift it up a little bit, right? Give a little bit of room for the fluid to kind of go in. And sometimes this works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes what I do is I just stick this in there first, right? Because it's hard to get it in there, all right? And then we'll put it in here. Yeah, so a lot of times it leaks out, even though you tighten it. This one may not be very good, but I find that sometimes if you get it right, you can get it all the way out the other end. Most of the time, that doesn't seem to work. I'm going to lift it up a little higher. You want to leave some room for the juice to flow in, and for the tube, you can actually stick the tube in and push it down, and that way you know you didn't go too far. Because if you shove it down too far, you're going to be kind of squirting onto the outer sheath and not and shooting it in between into the inside. Yes, it's leaking down, so I don't know if it did anything. I'm just going to go put a little bit of grease on this. That feels nice though. On both ends, right? Give it a wipe in case there's any debris. Yeah, see, there's still some debris on that, but we got most of it off. All right, so far so good. It's a little sticky, but I was moving it back and forth, and it's working better. Probably going to put a little oil on this pivot. I just put some of my tranny fluid mix, but I'll put a little oil on it, move it some more. I got it bail pulled back. We'll test the engine in a minute. Well, we're going to come over here. I got this puke out of the gas tank, and it's like, it smells kind of, it almost is like two-stroke or something, or somebody dumped a lot of oil into the gas, which is good because look at the carburetor. Now the fuel line is no good, but the carburetor is just dirty, and it has suffered no damage as a result. Which, by the way, guys, if you're going to store something for a long time, you can do that. You can take stable and gas and a bit of oil and two-stroke and maybe even concentrate it and run it into the motor and let it stall. This has been sitting for years and years and years. I washed it once outside, and we washed it again. It's been rained on. It was full of puke. All right, let me set up the camera. What we're going to do now, get the bail pulled back. I'm going to tighten up, make sure these are tight. We'll do a compression test. And we'll check for spark too, but we're going to want to take all this off. That's clean in there. We're going to want to take this off, delouse it. We're going to pop this off too and check to see if they hit anything. So let's do that. We'll be back. Just a quick spark plug test. I tightened all these up. They were a little bit loose. The customary to be loose over by the exhaust. Things expand more. Don't try to torque it. It won't do you any good. You will not get a correct reading. There's way too much friction and junk and gook on the threads. You're just never going to get a proper torque reading. Make it tight. I wouldn't recommend trying to take them off. That's a whole nother issue. I don't want to get into it here, but you could break the bolts. So just give it a good tightening. Now, I've got the bail pulled back, and what I feel now that the bail is pulled back is that we're a little stuck over here. Okay, so that's why I like to, get the bail pulled back. We're also hitting here a little. I don't know if the belt is pulled in. I know that the cable is a bit borked, so we're going to have to work around that. Let's just give it a spin. Yeah, she's having a hard time. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to actually get a proper reading on it. We could try to take the belt off. We'll have to zip this out. This is a nice little bracket here. But we're going to have to replace that cable. We know that. That I knew right away. So I may want to do that to see, just to get a good reading. We need to get in here anyway. So let me pop this off. You can't see it, but I'll do it right now. Okay, we just popped that belt off real quick. What I might want to do is just run the wire wheel around that later when we deal with the transmission. Let me just spin it up and see if there's spark. I'll yell it out. I'm using the plug that came with it. And I'm going to put a little tranny fluid in. A little bit of my tranny fluid mix in here. Kind of loosen things up a little bit before we do anything else. Let's see. I'm not seeing a spark yet. Hold on. Okay, I'm not seeing a spark. Could be a bad coil. That might have been what killed it. Let's pull the coil wire off. Yeah, here's just another decent plug. I had my test plug around here somewhere. Now I don't know what to do with it. It's like sometimes I clean up and I don't know what the hell I do. Let's find out. Okay, I think that coil is dead. All right, so we're just going to call it dead. I'll pop another one on. We'll pull that off. Let's see what that's probably what ended its life. Yeah, she's got plenty. 125. I wonder if the ACR is dead. It may even be old enough where it really doesn't have an ACR. I forget what year that cutoff is, but the sticker on it says Made in USA. All right, I'm going to take a peek in here, and I'll be right back. We want to see if it hit anything and if it threw the flywheel key. All right, this is something I always do. You should be able to see it's a little cocked. That can happen. I don't think it's too far to where it'll cause a problem, but if it does, if it kicks back on me, this is what we're going to come back to. But I'm going to let that go. I'm going to clean up these magnets. We're going to replace this, and we'll be back in a minute. Well, step 4 is really more engine related. Repairs and things related to the engine. At this point now, I'm kind of back to ignoring the body again for a little bit. Looking at it, and I might even be noodling with it and just kind of getting a feel for where I need to go. But now we're going to focus in on the repairs. Like I know now what the engine needs. In this case, you'll see what it needs. But so I'll be working on the carburetor, ignition system, spark, stuff like that, and affecting whatever repairs are needed to get this thing up to the next level. And a lot of times in that, I kind of include the blade, right? Because to do a test, we need to have a blade on this thing effectively, because that works in combination with the flywheel, and to really see if the motor is going to work and it's going to run smooth and no weird sounds or weird vibrations or anything. I need to know that, so I need to have a good blade installed as well. So that's part of step 4. All right, fellas, now before I go any further, we need a blade. We need to solve some of the issues up here. So a couple things we're going to do. We're going to clean up this blade. This is one I pulled aside and I checked it, and it's okay. It's just filthy, so we're going to grind that up and sharpen it. Then we want to clean off this surface. I'm going to put the belt on. We'll come over here. I'm going to put some oil in all of these spots, flip it over the other way, get all this cool transmission. Look at this little thing. So we're going to get some lubricant and all of that, and we'll wire wheel. I'll show you a little bit later. We'll wire wheel that pulley a little, get things unstuck, and I'll put a little paint on this blade because customers just like that. So when I come back, we'll do all of that, and I'll show you what I have, and we'll get that squared away. It's not bad. I like to use the disc sander. Here, let me show you that. And we'll throw a little paint on it. I think this is what, 60 grit, but sometimes you use 80 or 40. I forgot what I put on there. And I can sharpen it, and I check the balance, and it's great. And get everything cleaned off, and we'll throw a little paint on it, and I'll do this next. All right, moving right along. Okay, so I got the belt on. We did all that over there. I got the cable on. It's working good. I got a nice blade. I cleaned this off. I lubricated these fit nice, by the way. That's why you want to wire wheel this, whatever. Check these locating pins. Make sure that blade fits nice. You know, my plug is out, so I can also check to see if anything is bent, which I did that a while back. Hold your ears. Okay, this is the pole starter, and it's locked. It's kind of rusty too, so it's locked up. So I'm going to go see. A lot of times the rust gets into that spring and in here, and it gets locked up, and you can see that's the case. So I'm going to grab another one. We're looking for this type of cutout here and a cutout there, and that type of sort of castellated cutout here. So I'm going to get another one and match one up, and I think I have some out. So I'll be right back. Well, I got a couple of really nice ones. I got this one here. One of them I fixed, but this was from something that died. And this is correct. It's got the correct castellation here and the correct port here. Now, this one's a little different. See, it's got a much bigger port. This is for automatic choke. We're push prime. I'm going to hold on to this one because you could put this on a push primer, but you cannot put a push primer hat on an automatic choke. So we're going to hold on to this guy, and I'm going to lube that one up. And I just wanted to show you, remember, I wash these things out. They get sticky, even when they look nice. We're going to put a little oil on everything. And down where that spring goes, and you'll see it, right? It's that spring hook. Now you can also use chain wax, which works very well. Just going to put a little oil in there, and then I want to pull it all the way through. All right. Oh, that feels nice. And then I'm going to wipe it out. We'll put it on. Now everything else is done. The carburetor's on. I got a good magneto on there. I just want to check for spark real quick to make sure that that coil I just put on is working. It should be. Usually I check them before I take them off, but just to make sure before I put the hat on. All right, fellas, we got a spark. So I cleaned the magnets. I cleaned this up. I cleaned the standoff, like where the magnet, the coil mounts, because you want a good ground. I often say ground, but what it is, it's the metal connection, the electrical connection from the magnetron to the body of the engine. You want to be able to shut it off. You don't want intermittent issues. I get everything nice and clean, tips clean. I sprayed a little bit of, it was a little rusty in there, so I clean it with a little acid, and then I spray some chain wax in there. I need a good plug, but I tested. I got spark. The magnets are clean, and that helps. Same with this. All the contact points where the metal screws and everything meet to each other. Again, you want good physical, contact for the electricity. I gap it to about 10 thousandths. That's pretty much why I clean off all the rust, so I can get a good, accurate 10 thousandths gap. We'll have if it's nice and tight, make sure that's tight. I also tighten up the tube here, the intake tube. They're almost always loose, and this one was for sure. We got that tight. We're pretty much ready to go for a test. I'm going to put the top on now, and I'll rig up some fuel to it, and we'll give it a run just to see if she runs and how she runs. I don't hear any weird noises as I spin it over. So we're going to give it a little run, and we're going to dump the oil, and we'll start, finishing this thing up, and we'll get it purdied up too. Now, the last step or category is body, and what I include in the body is really the wheel adjusters, wheel lubrication, wheel replacement, and in particular transmission, right? Because that's actually part of the body. So that's separate. I know I've got a motor working, and I've tested that or done some preliminary tests on that. If I have to replace a motor, I'm already past that stage. I've got my ignition cable on. In this case, right, I wanted to work on the drive cable, and I was actually able to get this thing going again, which we'll see in a minute. I didn't think that was going to be the case, but I always look. So I'm into the transmission. I had a nice pleasant surprise, which you'll see, and it almost made me want to keep the machine. And I find that from time to time. I often feel bad about selling some of this stuff because I find stuff and I'm like, wow, I want that. I don't want to sell that. So I can include the body if I have to do any little bit of body work or touch up. That's not in this episode. It's going to be in others. I didn't really feel it necessary to correct any of that. But the transmission is important, and having good wheels and gears and lubrication and all that. So let's get to that step. All right, drive cable, same little issue. It just had like a little plug of junk caught up in here. Cleaned it all off. Same thing on this end. Got some oil on it as well, and some of my tranny fluid mix. And it's working good. I'm just going to wipe it down, put a little grease on it, and pop it back in. So this is good. All right, check this out, guys. Now, I wire wheeled this, so that's in good shape. I oiled from either side and here as well. And that's to sweeten the seal and to make sure you get some oil in there. And then this one's got a cap on it. How cool is that? So we can re-grease that, but I'm not going to use grease. I'm going to use some Valvoline 80W90, which I need some more of. So we're going to put a bunch of this in, and I'll explain why. Let it go in. If it goes in, we may have to pump some grease in because there's no, give it a chance to druze in there. But if we can get some in there, let me come from the other side. Might want to push it up. Let me prop this thing up on something. That way we can spin the gears. This is in really good shape, by the way. Will that one spin? No. Spin this side. Yeah. Yeah, that helps a little bit. Now, because the grease gets dry, I can see the gear in there. And what happens is really it's just the dryness And then the grease gets so dry that it gets pushed out of the way of the gears. So we want to liven that up a little bit. Now I could try putting a little bit of oil, right? Get a little regular oil in there and then try to move it in. See? It's trying to pull it in. It feels okay. Yeah, she's starting to wake up. Oh, I almost feel bad about selling this because it's like, I want this, right? A serviceable transmission. What the hey, right? Okay, let me show you the tranny. So there's an adjuster up top, and I'm gonna roll that adjuster in. This one actually has an adjustment on it, right? There we go. Oh wow, I don't know what the heck I did. There we go. Yeah, and we'll finish the adjustment. Now it's correct. Let's see. It should, yeah, see it's slipping? It's not trying to engage it. That's the way it should be. And should have something here. Now we gotta test it. We're not gonna put the cover on or anything until we get all this cleaned up. And I just wanted to show you guys, look at how polished that is. I didn't do anything to that. It's like mint. Right, so I'm gonna put a little oil, a little spray wax in, probably a little spray wax, because usually I put oil in. I may put a little oil on this side here, and because we got to get these adjusters to work. So that's another, yeah, that's a little stuck. So we got to put a little oil in here. Sometimes I use my tranny fluid mix to start off with to get everything moving again. And then I think in here we're gonna follow up with some chain wax. These guys are in really good shape. And of course, you know, when I was pressure washing, there's a lot of junk gets in here. Get everything cleaned out, pressure washed it, and then usually before I put the wheels back on, I squirt oil into everything because I got water on it, and that's my first lubrication. Check your backing plates, make sure they're in good shape. That way you keep it nice. And I'm gonna do with dirty hands and everything that's oily and greasy before I finish up. I'm gonna make sure these adjusters work, get them lubed. Same thing in the back. I want to get the tires off, make sure the adjusters work. That's important. That will restore that. And then one of the last things I do, these are stuck, right? So we got to get some spray lube in there. A lot of times people put these things in their trunk or whatever, and you don't want to skip something like that. I can see that they're stuck. Also, you can crimp these down if they're too, you know, flattened out. The handle will wobble. I'll see you guys in a bit. I took the plug out after running it for a while. Look, it's actually a little too white. Well, I had cleaned it really white, but it's running sweet. All right, don't forget a nice fresh air filter. You can get those cheap on Amazon and stuff. So I'm gonna put that in, put the top on. We got a few more things to do. Now, one of the last things I do, which is in the category of body, is things like the hubcaps, stickers. If stickers are peeling up, look, I got one over here that's peeling up a little bit. I'm gonna do that. I did this one earlier. Tie wraps, I organized the cables. And you would say, well, why don't you do that when you put the cable in? Well, because I don't know if I'm gonna take a cable out. In this case, it has a bag. Sometimes I don't check to fit. I'm busy doing so many other things that I like to make sure the cable's out of the way when you go to put the bag on and off, and that it's routed properly, and if I want to change it. I tend to leave that for later. Some of the other jobs I've had where I've had to be, you know, the guy that's the mechanic, the technician. If the engineer screws up, I got to be that guy to fix it. I got to be the grunt that sweeps the floor. You're essentially putting different hats on. And so what I learned is that there are some things you leave to later, and you leave them to later for a number of reasons. But one of the reasons is getting your head into it. If you were to try to do details while you're working, that's like assembly line type stuff, right? And that's been mapped out and figured out over time and ahead of time. I do it kind of like an assembly line, but I also do it sort of free form because each machine has particular needs, but under the 5 categories, right? And this being body is the finish. I also add a bit of clear coat, and you'll find, I didn't show that here because that's really, we'll put that in videos on paint education. where I show doing body work on lawnmowers and really anything. In the future, I'm going to be putting everything in that folder. I do have other videos of where I started painting and I show different tips and tricks. So that kind of stuff in the future is going to be new videos and older videos in that category, in that folder under Paint Education as I develop it. And I'll show you how I paint. I use different painting techniques and different spray bombs and paint guns and whatever for different reasons. And I always try to keep the application correct, right? And use as little as paint as possible. But I think you could see that it came out very nice. There are some blemishes on it. It's not a new machine. There's some little bit of rust here, but a little bit of clear coat on that. That passes muster. So these are the steps, guys, that I use. Essentially categories, 5 primary steps, right, in categories. And then all the little things that kind of go into it. But by following it in this way, I've developed this pattern to approach it this way. Every machine comes out like this, comes out the same, or I won't do it. Or it becomes parts, to make a machine like this. So it's nice to have parts as well. And I stay with that because I developed that this way. I don't miss anything. And I don't take jobs that don't really allow me to do this because it's not a shop that's super busy and stuff's coming in. I just gotta brush the dirt out of the way and just fix the carburetor or fix a cable. I will do that occasionally, but I don't pursue that kind of work because it's busy work that can kind of get in your way and you don't make much money doing it, and it breaks a routine, because those kinds of things can become routine, but they can break your routine. So 5 basic categories or steps to take it from trash to something that's cash, or for yourself that you find something out there and you have it yourself. It's a machine that you have let go maybe for a long period of time. So that's it for this one. I will see you guys on the next one, and hopefully this was helpful to you guys. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe, guys, and leave a comment. Let's build the channel together. It helps me to do what I do here, and also it helps me to, you let me know what kind of content you guys like to see. I'll see you on the next one.